My name is Lauren and I'm 24 years old. Let me tell you about my roller coaster journey. I've had a rocky history with the foster care system. You see, my biological parents were deep into drugs and their addiction consumed their lives. As a result, I was left in the hands of the state, bouncing from one foster home to another. To say I resented my parents would be an understatement. They abandoned me, neglected me, and shattered any chance of a normal childhood. I carried that anger and hurt deep within me for years. I didn't even attend my biological mother's funeral when she passed away, as I couldn't find it in me to say a final goodbye to the person who had brought me into such a chaotic world. But then, at the age of 10, a glimmer of hope shone through the darkness. I was adopted by Tia and Xavier, the most amazing parents a girl could ask for. They opened their hearts and their home to me, and I became a part of their loving family. They taught me the meaning of unconditional love, provided stability, and showed me that I was worthy of all the happiness in the world. I owe everything I am today to them, and my love for them knows no bounds. When I was 16, tragedy struck once again. My dear mom, Tia, passed away, leaving a void in our lives that seemed impossible to fill. But amidst the grief, something unexpected happened. My biological father, Glenn, resurfaced from the shadows and expressed a desire to turn his life around. It seemed he had finally hit rock bottom and found the strength to seek help and get clean. My dad, Xavier, approached me and asked if I wanted to see him. It was a daunting decision, but curiosity and a tiny spark of hope led me to say yes. We visited Glenn at the rehabilitation center, and I cautiously observed his progress. To my surprise, he appeared genuinely committed to his recovery and building a better life. It was a glimmer of redemption that stirred conflicting emotions within me. Time passed and Glenn completed his 2-year stint in rehab. By the time I turned 18, we decided to give our relationship another chance. After all, he was my biological father, and part of me longed for a connection with him. We started rebuilding our bond, cautiously navigating through the unfamiliar territory of father and daughter. It wasn't easy, but I believed in the power of forgiveness and second chances. However, as I got to know Glenn better, I couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't quite right. There were moments when he seemed genuine, trying to make amends for the past, but there were also instances when his old demons resurfaced, threatening to pull him back into the dark abyss of addiction. I realized that my desire for a relationship with my biological father was clouded by my yearning for closure, for answers to the questions that haunted me throughout my life. But in the process, I discovered that closure doesn't always come in the form we expect. It doesn't erase the pain or fill the void left by years of neglect. Nonetheless, I tried fostering a positive relationship between us, but that turned out to be a mistake. As time went on, Glenn's true colors began to reveal themselves. Despite his initial efforts to change, he couldn't escape the clutches of his old ways. The addiction that had plagued him before resurfaced, consuming him once again. It was heartbreaking to witness his descent into ugliness and aggression. I tried to be understanding, to give him the benefit of the doubt, hoping that he would find his way back to the path of recovery, but the more I tried, the more he pushed me away with his toxic behavior. It was a painful realization, but I knew I had to protect myself from the negativity and toxicity that he brought into my life. When I turned 21, I made the difficult decision to cut him off completely. I no longer had space in my heart for the hatred and disappointment he had caused. I had to prioritize my well-being and surround myself with positive influences. It was a tough choice, but one that ultimately allowed me to find peace and move forward. Xavier, my adoptive dad, felt a deep sense of remorse for everything I had been through with Glenn. He blamed himself, believing he could have shielded me from the pain and disappointment, but I reassured him that it wasn't his fault. He had given me a stable and loving home, providing the foundation for me to grow and thrive. I made it clear that he was not responsible for the actions of my biological father. One evening, as we sat on the porch enjoying the gentle breeze, Xavier opened up about his feelings of guilt. Tears welled up in his eyes as he expressed his regret for not being able to protect me from the hardships I faced in my early years. I reached out and held his hand, assuring him that he had done more for me than he could ever imagine. Lauren, I can't help but feel so remorseful for introducing Glenn back into your life. I thought he had truly changed, but I was wrong. I'm sorry for the pain and disappointment he brought into your life. Dad, please don't blame yourself. You had no way of knowing how things would turn out. You gave me the opportunity to reconnect with him, and I appreciate that. It was Glenn who let me down, not you. You've always been there for me, supporting and loving me unconditionally. I just wanted you to have a chance to build a relationship with your biological father. I wanted you to experience the bond that I couldn't provide as an adoptive dad. But seeing how things unfolded, I feel responsible for the hurt it caused you. Dad, you've given me more than I could have ever asked for. You've shown me what it truly means to be a parent regardless of blood ties. You've been my rock, my guiding light. Please understand that Glenn's actions are his own. You couldn't have predicted or controlled his choices. You did everything you could to protect me and provide me with a loving home. I am grateful for that. Thank you, Lauren. Your words mean the world to me. I've always wanted the best for you, and it hurts me to see you go through such pain. We can't change the past, Dad. What's important now is that we support each other and focus on the love we share as a family. We've grown stronger together, and we'll continue to do so. Let's leave the past behind us and look toward the future with hope and joy. You're right, Lauren. We have each other, and that's what matters most. I'm so proud of the strong young woman you've become, and I'm grateful to have you as my daughter. We'll navigate this journey together, always supporting and loving each other. Absolutely, Dad. We're in this together, and no matter what challenges we face, we'll overcome them as a family. I love you, Dad. I love you too, Lauren, forever and always. I was so glad that we had this moment of clarity. This was yet another reason for me to believe that blood isn't thicker than water, and that the people who you call family are the ones who have conversations like this with you. Anyways, despite going through a lot of trauma in my childhood, it seemed as though my young adulthood had more promising outcomes as I met Rick. He made me feel so special, and I knew the moment I met him that he was the one for me. It looked like my life was finally turning around, and I was so ready to embrace the wonderful changes that were coming my way. Not too soon afterward, I was about to marry the love of my life, Rick. We had been together for 3 amazing years, filled with love, laughter, and support. He had swept me off my feet, and I knew deep in my heart that he was the one for me. It was during our vacation in Spain that he got down on one knee and proposed, and without hesitation, I said yes. Everything seemed to be falling into place. I was overjoyed at the thought of starting a new chapter in my life, especially because Rick's family was so warm, accepting, and loving. They embraced me as if I had always been a part of their family. It was a stark contrast to the tumultuous relationship I had with Glenn. Rick's family offered a sense of stability and healthy family dynamic that I had always yearned for. But as the day of our wedding approached, I couldn't shake this nagging feeling that something was off. I tried to brush it off as pre-wedding jitters, but deep down, I knew it was more than that. I confided in Rick, and even in my dad, Xavier, expressing my concerns, but they assured me that it was just nerves playing tricks on me. As I stood in front of the mirror, getting ready to walk down the aisle, I took a deep breath, trying to calm my racing heart. I still couldn't ignore the sinking feeling in my gut. Something was wrong. Xavier found me and was ready to lead me down the aisle, but he stopped and said, "Wow, my little girl, all grown up." "Come on, Dad, don't tell me you're going to cry." "I can't help it. It seems like just yesterday I was helping you with your math homework, and now you're here, all grown up and ready to take on the world." "You're going to make me ruin my makeup, Dad." "Are you sure you still want to do this?" "Say the word and we're out of here." I got the car running. "Dad, you know I want to marry this man." "I know, sweetie. I know that she's proud of you. I know she's looking down at you, and she's beaming." I was so mad at him because I started to cry. And true to what I said before, he made me ruin my makeup. I did my best to fix it, but we were laughing about it the entire time, effectively delaying the program. We made our way outside, and after fist bumping, my dad swung open the grand old church doors to reveal me, in my wedding dress, about to walk down the aisle. As I took a step forward, I heard something. The shrill and drunken voice of a man I once knew. Instantly my hair stood on end, and my father's paled expression was all the confirmation I needed. "Oh, Lauren!" The wedding guests all halted and tried to peer behind me to see what was happening, and like a bad omen, Glenn was creeping forward, demanding to be witnessed by all. I turned around to face him, my heart pounding in my chest, and there he was. Glenn, my biological father, stood there with an unsettling grin on his face. How did he even find out about my wedding? The sight of him filled me with a mix of anger, fear, and disappointment. I had cut him off completely, and now he dared to show up uninvited, potentially ruining one of the most important days of my life. I knew this was too good to be true. My mind raced, contemplating what to do next. Should I confront him? Should I ignore him and focus on the happiness that awaited me just a few steps away? I looked at Rick, who was at the altar, searching for reassurance, and he sent me a sympathetic glance, implying that he didn't know what to do, but that he got my back, no matter what. I then turned to Xavier, who squeezed my hand gently, his eyes filled with understanding. At that moment, I knew I wasn't alone. Rick and Xavier would support me no matter what decision I made. Taking a deep breath, I made a choice. I refused to let Glenn's presence overshadow the joy and love that surrounded me. I would not allow him to taint this special day. With determination in my eyes, I straightened my veil, held my head high, and locked eyes with Xavier. Together, we would face whatever challenges came our way because we were a family. A strong and loving family that had overcome so much. I began walking down the aisle, and the church music awkwardly started up again after stopping. Glenn apparently couldn't take the hint, and he emerged from the shadows, and in full view, he said, "Oh, my baby, why aren't you paying attention to me? Why did you leave me?" To say I was mortified would be an understatement. How could he do something like that so publicly? Up ahead, I saw Rick preparing to make his way down the aisle to perhaps teach my father a lesson, but I sent him a look that told him to stay put. I didn't need this escalating further. Xavier had already turned around to face the beast that threatened to ruin my special day, and as I glanced around the congregation, I could see people whispering and murmuring about how this was all so unprofessional and lowbrow. My blood started to boil. I felt so heated. I turned around and said, "Just what the heck do you think you're doing?" "Baby girl, what do you mean?" "I mean that you're crazy. How dare you come to my wedding and crash it like this, uninvited, and most importantly, unwanted." I couldn't believe my eyes. There he was, stumbling towards me, sloppily drunk and making a complete fool of himself. Gasps and murmurs rippled through the crowd as Glenn crashed my wedding. People stared at him, their judgmental eyes boring into his disheveled appearance. I stepped back, instinctively avoiding his outstretched hand as he clumsily tried to grab onto my dress. The room fell silent except for Glenn's unsteady footsteps and the collective whispers of disbelief. It was clear that he had already caused enough embarrassment for himself. Xavier's voice cut through the tension, filled with anger and frustration. "How dare you come here and ruin this special day with your selfishness?" Glenn, swaying unsteadily, responded with a slurred retort. "It's my right as a father to walk my baby girl down the aisle. How could you not tell me you were getting married?" Anger surged through me as I shouted back, unable to contain my pent-up emotions any longer. "You don't get to claim that right after everything you've done. You abandoned me, treated me horribly, and subjected me to your constant shouting for no reason." Glenn attempted to silence me. His eyes filled with desperation. He harshly whispered so that the crowd couldn't hear. "Don't mention anything about my past. I'm here to do better. These people don't need to know anything." "Trust me, buddy. Everyone here can tell that you're drunk." "You think I'm embarrassing you by exposing the truth?" "Yes." "Oh, you'll feel embarrassed, all right. Everyone deserves to know the kind of man you truly are." I laid bare all the painful memories, exposing him to the drug abuse, the abandonment, and the emotional abuse I had endured due to his insolence. The crowd, once filled with curiosity and shock, now brimmed with anger and disgust towards Glenn. They witnessed the extent of his toxic behavior and the impact it had on my life. Amidst it all, I caught a glimpse of Rick standing on the sidelines, his eyes filled with unwavering support and admiration. He cheered me on silently, his love and belief in me shining through. At that moment, surrounded by the emotions swirling around me, I realized that I had made the right decision, to expose my biological dad in front of everyone. I turned to him to find himself shaking with a mixture of anger and fear. That's not true, Erin." "Erin? That's your name, isn't it?" "How pathetic. You can't even remember your daughter's name." "Whatever. I demand that you let me walk you down the aisle. Right this instant. I'm your father." No, you're not." "What?" "You heard me. You're not my father. We might share the same DNA, but trust me, you are the last person I would refer to as a father figure. Xavier is my real father, and I'm going to shout it from the rooftops for everyone to hear because he's been the one who was taking care of me all these years. He's protected and guided me while you were out doing drugs and being reckless. So no, you will not walk me down the aisle. I'm going to have my real father do it." Glenn couldn't seem to understand that I didn't want him. He really thought that he could just waltz his way in here and treat me so horrendously, but he was wrong. I had done a lot of growth since the last time I met him, and although he was used to me taking him back, giving him chance after chance to do better, this time was different. Glenn looked at Xavier with hatred, and eventually his eyes wandered around the crowd, meeting people's looks of disgust with his feelings of embarrassment. He certainly wasn't expecting me to air out his dirty laundry like that, but I did. And I'm glad I did it, because I have nothing to be ashamed for. He was the one who abandoned me and abused me, not the other way around. And if he had the gall to make demands to me on my wedding day, then surely he would have the gall to be exposed. But clearly that wasn't the case. Glenn's embarrassment was palpable as the truth still hung heavy in the air. The crowd's disapproval intensified, their scorn pushing him further into isolation and fear. The security guards finally arriving at the scene swiftly escorted Glenn out of the venue, away from the prying eyes of the guests. The cheers and applause that had accompanied my walk down the aisle now echoed through the room, mingling with the sounds of sobbing from those who had been moved by my painful past. I smiled up at Xavier, gratitude filling my heart as he led me towards my future. The warmth of his hand in mine reassured me that I had made the right choice, sticking by my father, who took care of me instead of the father who was related to me. The ceremony proceeded as planned, filled with love and support from our friends and family, despite the debacle that threatened to ruin everything moments prior. But the aftermath of Glenn's actions didn't end there. News quickly spread about his attempt to ruin my wedding, and the community turned against him. Glenn became a social outcast, ostracized for his selfishness and the pain he had caused. It weighed heavily on him, pushing him further into his destructive tendencies. In his shame, he went on a drug bender and disappeared from our lives. So as for Glenn, his actions had consequences. The revelation of his attempt to disrupt our wedding tarnished his reputation. The guilt and shame overwhelmed him, and he vanished, leaving behind a void of unanswered questions. His absence only confirmed that I had made the right decision in choosing to be with someone who genuinely loved and supported me. In the midst of it all, I found solace and happiness with Xavier by my side. Our bond grew stronger, and he continued to be the loving and supporting father figure I had always cherished. I was grateful that Glenn was finally out of my life for good, allowing me to embrace the love and stability that Xavier had provided throughout my journey. Rick and I embarked on a new chapter together, building a life filled with love, understanding, and healing. We cherished every moment, grateful for the strength we had gained from overcoming our past. Glenn's absence served as a reminder of the toxic cycle we had broken free from, allowing us to appreciate the peace and happiness we had found. And so, with Glenn's presence serving as a distant memory, I focused on nurturing my relationships, living a life filled with joy and remaining forever grateful for the love and support that surrounded me.